From Malaysia. Thanks for joining this session. Today's speaker is Professor Dr. Rukhsana Hussain Malik, and she would be talking on student mentoring and tracking system. So, as usual, there would be question answer sessions at the end. In the meantime, you can write your questions in the chat as well, and they would be addressed at the end of the session. Right, over to Dr. Rukhsana.
Assalamu alaikum, Prof. Rukhsana, please. Wish you all the best.
And a very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. It's the 12th webinar, and probably this is our first birthday as well. We do this webinar once every month. Today we are going to talk about the student support system. And in student support system, we are going to talk about
Can't hear you.
Sorry. After attending the sessions, the participants will be able to apply the knowledge to develop and implement a vibrant student mentoring system in their faculty for the holistic development of the medical students, and to develop and implement a student tracking system to aid the students in successful completion of their studies on schedule, hopefully. The student support system comprises of the two types. The developmental student support system is the more holistic approach, in which all the aspects of the development of the students are taken care of, starting from the development of resilience to career guidance, ensuring adjustment for students with learning difficulties. On the right side of your screen, you will see that there is a reddish area. In this area, the information which is given is related to the slides, but we are not going to talk in detail about those things. The students need all this support because when they enter into the university, this is a completely new environment for them, and in this environment they had to adjust themselves both socially, both financially, as well as psychologically. So there are a number of approaches which are taken by the universities nowadays to make the students comfortable. The second approach is the deficit or the reactive approach. In this approach, only those students are provided with the mentoring which are identified as the students at risk. So it is focused only on some of the students, and the remaining students are not given any sort of support. However, the important dimension of student supports are both academic and personal, which are closely integrated. And the GMC sets a standard for separate system for managing the students with performance issues and providing the student support. Student performance issues includes, for example, the issues of plagiarism or issues related to cheating or students not attending the classes and all those things. So those type of issues are dealt with separately by different committees, which make the decisions about the students. But the mentoring practically is is a type of system which gives the students an opportunity to excel. The ways and methods over there are such that they help the student in excelling in their academics as well. The student mentoring system and tracking system practically helps in this to get these objectives. The purpose of the student support system is academic, to help the students, for example, in examination, to deal with the content overload, to deal with the learning difficulties, study skills, time management. Time management is a big issue for the students who enter into the universities, because they have not been trained in the schools in the skill of time management properly. The professional purpose will be to develop mutual trust between the faculty and the students. The workplace adjustment of the students, odd time duties they perform in the clinical years, dealing with the death and dying attitude, behavior, ethics, etc., etc. So these are some of the basic things in which the professional development of the students takes place through mentoring. The personal is the psychosocial support related to financial issues, social issues, interpersonal relationships, the peer pressures which the student get when they enter into the university education, dealing with the life skills, new environment, lack of recreation, psychological pressures, and stress. So there are a lot of factors which are going to affect the students' well-being, and these should be taken care of promptly for the students to excel academically. Career, the interest in research, choice of career paths, advice on curriculum, writing curriculum vitae, the references, interviewing skills, uh, uh, interview giving skills, techniques, and the grooming of the students is another component of the mentoring system. Administrative is to acquaint the students with the systems of the universities. Each university has a different way of dealing with their issues. They have different type of offices, different nomenclature even is used for different purposes. So the location and the rules and regulations of all these systems, the students should be made aware of. The faculty also takes part in adjusting the students in different ways. There are tutor schemes in which one-to-one or a group tutors are provided. Usually it is more applied, more used in the European countries, especially in UK, in which our tutor is assigned to a student who stays their tutor for the whole 5 years of duration of the course. It can be horizontal, it can be vertical. The tutor can change yearly, or the tutor can go up to the 5th year. The school student advisory office helps in financial counseling and in the career guidance. The school counselor services help the students with psychiatric and psychological problems. The faculty school student affairs section and the academic office also helps the students in adjusting in the initial stages of their university life. The Zakat fund system is present in some of the universities in Malaysia, in which the Zakat is deducted from the pay of all the staff, and this money is dispersed to the needy students on the need basis. The child care, the pastoral care, and the language courses are also provided to the students. There are some students who are married and have kids, so the child care centers are also provided in most of the universities in Malaysia. The pastoral care, the religious care, and the language courses. For example, for the foreign students who are new to Malaysia, they have to learn some of the Malay language, and vice versa, the students of Malay origin, they need some English learning courses to excel in the university environment. The medical education unit practically is responsible for a more focused student support, which which occurs in the form of student mentoring system, student tracking system, and their contribution in the personal and professional development of the students. So what is the origin of the mentoring? There is a bit of a storytelling over here. The mentor practically was an elderly friend of King Odysseus, which was a king in the Greek mythology. He was also the tutor of the young prince. The Odysseus has a son, Telemachus. So he was also the tutor of the Telemachus. The king left prince alone for years while in war, and that was the war of Trojan, which continued for around 10 years. So for the 10 years duration of time, the king was not there. The father was not there for the prince to see that the prince learns all the skills which are required for him to be a good prince. In that situation, the mentor becomes the faithful friend, a trusted advisor, and a wise counselor for the prince. Here, the word mentor is used now for this purpose, while the prince are also called as a protege, portrayed him as his role model. So the protege, the word is used also for mentee. The world famous mentors are Socrates, a Greek philosopher from Athens, and the Socrates was the mentor of Plato, which was again a Greek philosopher, and Plato was a mentor of Aristotle, and Aristotle was mentor of Alexander the Great. So you can see the influence of the mentors on the mentees is so much. Then the most of the philosophy part of the education comes from the Greek side of the world. The student mentoring system per se is a relationship in which a more experienced or a knowledgeable person helps to guide a less experienced or a knowledgeable person by sharing known resources, their expertise, their values, skills, attitudes, perspectives, and proficiencies. The process requires frequent communication. These communication can be face-to-face or online. They can be planned or unplanned. They can be short-term or long-term. They can be formal or informal on need basis, but they have to be for a specified duration of the course. So different universities plan this in a different format. In some places, this is a more extensive mentoring system, while in other places, the mentoring system is more localized. The concept of mentoring actually gained popularity in the medical education in 1990s to help the students in their learning and development, advancement in career, and coping with the problems to enhance their professional and psychosocial development. So all these aspects are covered in mentoring. What are the basic requirements of the student mentoring system? There has to be a student mentoring system committee, also called as the mentor-mentee committee in Malaysia, because a single person or cannot deal with this, which is a huge task and which continues throughout the 5 years of time. Is done almost every day for some students somewhere. So somebody has to take care of it. So there should be a committee for that. The mentor's training and preparation is very, very vital for the purpose. The goals and objectives of the SMS should be worked out and should be known to all the mentors and the mentees. Similarly, the mentor's role and responsibilities and the mentee's responsibility should also be known to everybody so that everybody knows what is expected from them and what they should expect from the mentees as well. The mentor and mentee grouping is to be done so that there are specified number of students which will be associated with each mentor. The mentor-mentee record book is also prepared. You can see that the title page of the first page of the mentor-mentee record book of one of the universities in which I have worked over here. You'll see that important information about the student, his father, his mother, the contact number, email, home address, etc. This is all noted down over here, so that in case of emergency, whom to contact, we all know all this information. And similarly, the name of the mentee, his or her contact number, and the email address is provided in the textbook, in this record book. So the purpose of all this information is that whenever the need arises, there is an easy access for the communication to take place. The mentor-mentees committee also designs formal activities for the mentees, which are related to the career, to the academic development, research, basic skills, soft skills development, professionalism, ethics, etc. So it covers a lot of diverse topics over here. Monitoring of the program activities and its evaluation is also a very, very vital part, which unfortunately is not done this rigorously. But I have show in the later part of the presentation that this is done in some of the universities quite vigilantly. The funding for the program activities has to come from somewhere, so there are supposed to be some resources available. And similarly, the rewards for the mentors who have performed very well and they have brought up some students from, say, from performing very bad to a good, they should be rewarded. Or doing this job for continuously for some time, they should be rewarded. And the mentees should also be rewarded for their good performance. There are stages of the mentoring relationship, but there are 5 stages. It starts with contemplation, in which the program is being set. The matching of the mentor and mentee takes place. In most of the universities over here in Malaysia, it is done by the faculty. It's a random selection method, but there are other methods also. Setting rules and regulation has already been done. The initiation will be the ice breaking when the students first register themselves. There will be a session with them, will be the ice breaking, trust building, and setting agenda and deciding the personal commitments. The growth and maintenance period is when the relationship matures, and it roughly takes, according to the literature, about 6 months to develop a good relationship between the mentor and mentee, in which they can open up and they can discuss their more personal issues with each other. They start sharing the personal information and their inner worries during this stage. The decline and dissolution is when the mentor-mentee knows that this relationship is going to end very soon, say about a month or 2 months earlier. So the requirement of the mentoring session becomes less. They meet less frequently, and ultimately the relationship ends formally towards the end of the specified duration. Redefinition is the stage in which some of the mentees will still continue seeing the same mentors, although they have been assigned a new mentors, or the students who have left this university, they have already graduated, will come back and will talk to their mentors through WhatsApp, SMSs, mails, whatever forum, to keep in contact with them and still discuss their issues with them. So there's a type of a new relationship which has developed, but which has nothing to do with the proper mentoring system. The aims of the SMS is to provide support for the holistic development, both academic and non-academic, to produce a professional who is productive, independent, imbued with the humanistic values, and to tap into the existing knowledge, skills, and experience of the senior or high-performing academic staff and transfer these skills to younger mentees to help them advance their careers. The objectives will be to facilitate the students in academic pursuit and help them to cope with the difficulties by developing friendly and cordial relationship, to create an environment of mutual trust between the faculty and the students, in which they can open up and discuss all their issues with open heart, encourage interaction among the students so that the peer pressure is reduced, help students to handle their social issues more effectively, and provide emotional stability and help to reduce psychosocial issues affecting the academic process of the progress of the students. Develop professionalism and personal growth, increase interest in clinical specialties, academic medicine, and research. This is a new thing, new responsibility which has occurred over the past a decade or so, where the mentors are also responsible in developing interest of the students in those specialties which are underrepresented in practical life, where the students are not keen to take the specialties but are important ones. So they develop while mentoring they develop the interest of the students in those specialties. Academic medicine also, because at some stage all the medical graduates have to be the teachers of somebody somewhere. So it's it also provides career counseling to the students. Okay, so what are the different models of the mentoring? This is a dyad model. Okay. Diet model is one-on-one mentoring, or the apprenticeship model is a triads when the mentee has two mentors or mentor has two mentees providing career and psychosocial support. If you look at the diagram, you will see that in the triad method, when there is two mentors and one mentee, the two mentors they don't communicate with each other, but both of them communicate only with the mentees. While in the second form, when there is one mentor and two mentees, then there is a more free communication between the mentor and the mentees themselves. The collective method is when there are two mentors and three mentees. It is the when the two mentors they communicate with each other, as well the mentees some communicate with each other. But the two mentors they perform their individualized work. For example, one looks more to the academic side of the students, and other looks more towards the professional development of the students. The network method is one when the mentees has two mentors, two mentorship nodes, and two resource nodes. The mentorship nodes are usually the peers, so they have the peer mentoring, and the mentorship nodes are the social media forums. So a mentee is connected with two mentors, with two peer groups, and with two social media forums for this purpose. The group mentorship is the one which is commonly practiced, in which a mentor is associated with 5 to 10 mentees, which is commonly practiced. There are some other types which are more applicable in the working years of the academicians. Constellation, mosaic, multiple. So when you are in a practical life, these type of mentoring are available. The mentoring group targets for program targets for medical students in all years. So in some institutions, all the students are provided mentoring for all the years, while sometimes it is for the specific stage of training, example, during the preclinical years or the clinical years only, or clinical support for students during certain specialty rotations. For example, in this, the example which I've quoted over here is from a paper in which it was done only for the surgery posting. One particular year to provide students with skills they need for their future. For example, the final year students being mentored to be trained as the junior doctors. The students with academic difficulties only, like those who were struggling in the preclinical years, only those are provided mentoring in the clinical years. Students who are picked as high achievers and given extra grooming, sometimes they are only mentored. And students from underprivileged strata having special needs and special. So I'll be stopping here and then, please. Okay, the of the SMS program is modified usually from the programs of other institutions, incorporating the feedback of the mentors and mentees, or it is based on the need analysis. The funding for the program is provided from a range of resources, including the host universities and or third parties. Usually in Malaysia, for example, different companies fund for these sort of activities as a part of their social responsibility. The mentor assignment is done by random selection. Most of the time, I've said in the earlier part, mentees can choose in some places their own mentors when they have the choice of a database of mentors. Online matching is done in some of the universities through electronic data processing, and sometimes two mentors are assigned to a group of mentees also. So it depends upon the circumstances and situations in which the university is. The mentor's roles and responsibility: mentor as a teacher helps in goal setting and time management, encourages integrated learning, inculcates humanistic values, and encourages research and academic development. As a facilitator or supervisors offer advice and guidance, monitors academic and the clinical skills performance, supports in critical reflection, suggests solutions to the problems. It doesn't impose the solutions, it just simply suggests, directs to appropriate resources. As a counselor schedules uninterrupted time for meetings, so there is a specified time which is being allocated for the mentor-mentee meetings, and the mentors have to make themselves available during that time, establishes climate of open interaction, provides career counseling, and maintains confidentiality and trust. As a coach, commits the time and energy for productive mentoring relationship, which can be face-to-face, online, through emails, chats, Google Hangouts, and Hangouts, or other resources. Helps in the development of interpersonal skills like teamwork, provides positive feedback to change and reinforce behavior after conducting few of those activities. As a guide, recommends appropriate strategies for academic development, provides encouragement and support by listening patiently, discussing openly the issues of the mentees, encourages two-way exchange of communication. As an advisor, listens to career concerns of the mentees, provide information, his or her personal insight, options, and ideas at appropriate times. And as a role model, exhibits and cultivates high standard of solid work ethics, professionalism, and positive attitudes, provides balanced support and challenges to enhance the professional growth of the mentees. On the other hand, the mentee's roles and responsibility is to create a vibrant relationship which includes collaboration and confidentiality, set the goals which are realistic and achievable, discuss any academic or personal problem that might affect academic performance, take advantage of educational and social learning opportunities offered by the mentor, prepare daily timetables, which is a very important part for because many students have problem with their time management. So if they have their daily routine set up, they can show it to their mentors, and the mentors can guide them how to manage their time more properly. Meet regularly with the mentors to discuss any problems in understanding and comprehension. Meet their mentors after the progress test specifically or end semester examination to take the feedback. This is when the mentor meets with the mentee. This is the one of the pages of those that document the mentor-mentee record book. The student should guide extracurricular activities, take initiative to take feedback, discuss feedback, record concerns and discussion. So in this you will see that the mentee will write in the area which is provided over there under the mentee's concern area, and uh, the discussion which has taken place is all noted by the mentee. While the mentor in the lower part of this page will write his or her comment about their mentee and how they think that the further actions should be taken. So the signature is taken both of the mentor and the mentee. So this becomes an official document which can be utilized in case of students having any sort of problems. The mentee should also exhibit good attitude and behavior which is appropriate for a doctor, should always be considerate and respect the mentor's time. So whenever the appointment has been fixed, the mentee should make himself or herself available for that, as it is the responsibility of the mentor as well. Return the phone calls promptly and be on time with commitments or meetings. It has been a big issue with the mentors in some of the places. So it's very important that the mentee should appreciate that the mentor is spending his precious time and giving his valuable information or suggestions to him, so he should appreciate that. Assume the mentoring connection will be strictly professional but friendly. The implementation is that the mentees are given information on the ground rules and expectations via emails, lectures, which are usually conducted during the orientation week or the first week of the students joining the university after registration, or as a paper handout. The mentor-mentee record books are provided to the mentors, which they will give to the mentees as and whenever they come and meet them. The mentees make notes of issues discussed and the suggestions which are provided. The mentor will write their comments and thoughts. There are fixed slots in the timetable for mentor-mentor meeting, which can occur on a weekly basis, two at some places, only on a semester basis. So it depends upon the university, how the university has planned these programs. In most of the universities in Malaysia, the meetings are more frequent and usually occurs on the weekly basis. There is a specific slot in the timetable. Out of these slots, the mentors can always arrange a meeting with their mentees. Mentees can always arrange a meeting with their mentors if required. Mentors are also allowed or encouraged to take their mentees out of campus for social activities, and in some universities, it is a compulsory activity as well. In some of the institutions, the universities also provide their transport for the students to go with their mentors for, say, a lunch break, or to go for an outing, or do some community service or community work, something like that. The arrangement for community service and visit to industries should also be done formally by the mentor-mentee committee. The mentors coordinate with each other to discuss the issues which are commonly occurring in their mentoring process, and they can guide each other in how to tackle those issues. The communication between all the concerned people in the faculty also need basis is done when the academic office or the deputy dean academics or deputy dean student affairs, they're involved in sorting out few student problems. The training and workshops of the mentors should be done on a regular basis. During the sessions, the agent skilled helper model is utilized in most of the universities, in which there are 3 stages. The stage 1 is the exploration stage, in which the problem situations are discussed, but the students are facing what is the problem. For example, the number of students have failed in their module, so what has went wrong. The student will discuss their missed opportunities and look for the new perspective, and then they will identify the problems and the resources that will make a difference. Or in this stage, they can straight away go to the stage 2, and they can change their agenda, they can change their planning, and they can go for sort out their problems by changing their outcomes and their choices. Discuss the commitment to achieve the goals. Stage 3 is the action planning. Identify possible ways of achieving the goals. Once they have identified their problems and they've identified the ways through the brainstorming, now they have to find the exact method of doing that. Identify most suitable way which is realistic and achievable, and they can make a step-by-step plan how to achieve these goals which are identified within the time frame. This is one method which is being utilized in most of the universities again in UK. And this, if somebody wants to read more about it, the source is given below down as a footnote. The implementation of the SMS in most of the universities is that each mentor has 5 to 10 mentees, but sometimes this figure is camouflaged. A mentor might have more than 10 mentees. For example, for one intake, they have 10 mentees, and for year 2, they also have some mentees. And if there are multiple intakes, they have other mentees, and for postgraduate, they have mentees. So at some institution, a mentor has more than 30 mentees as well, which is on record, which is wrong because it is not possible for one person to deal with so many number of mentees. So these are some issues which need to be tackled. The mentors meets the mentees as a group for discussion of the journal issues, and then they can meet with the mentees on one-to-one basis to sort out any academic or personal problems. The support of the mentoring system includes a number of people, a number of departments involved over here. The deputy dean academics and the student affairs, module coordinators, special experts, peers, subject experts, phase coordinators. So all of them are there to help in the mentoring process. The mentor-mentee coordinator can contact with the module coordinator for attendance or punctuality of the students, concern about the academic weakness during the module, the result transcripts, etc. And they can talk directly to the phase coordinator about the overall academic performance, which they will see how their mentees are performing by looking at their student tracking system, which we'll talk about in a moment. attitude and behavior problems and social and financial problems if their mentees are facing those. And the FACE coordinator then will coordinate with the deputy dean academics for chronic attitude problems, behavior misconduct, or persistent poor academic performance. So there you will see that the number of steps are there and number of people are involved over here. In some places, even the deans get involved and they give the direct mentoring to the students who are in dire need of it. The other people involved are the subject experts, the specialty experts, for example, the counselors, the peers from whom we can dig out some information about our mentees' problems. The university counselors can also be involved in this thing. And if you look on your right side, there are other support channels in which use of internet blogging, WhatsApp, motivational talks by eminent scholars, meet the dean sessions, etc. These are other venues through which the mentors can be helped. So these are the channels which are used by different universities. The special mentoring situations, for example, there was a requirement to conduct a 6-week academic remedial program for students who are preparing in the final professional examination. And for some of these students, this was their final chance to succeed. Otherwise, they will not be able to get their degrees. So it was a very crucial stage for some of the students. And we know that the poor performers are not the homogeneous group. They have their own problems, and so effective remediation requires individualized approach for them. So what happened in this situation was that all the students are interviewed individually by a medical educationist and a psychiatrist to identify the cause of poor performance, which turned out to be academic weakness, time management, they were lone learners, they have financial, emotional, and family problems. So according to them, the mentor were assigned for a weekly scheduled meeting. The mentor assisted them to get access to any facilities or counseling which is required, to check if identified those learning issues in which were identified by the psychiatrist and the medical educationist, whether those are addressed. Students were advised to have short reflection of their weekly activities on their participation, their contribution, their strengths and weaknesses, and the ways to address them, which were then discussed. There was a heart-to-heart talk, and the feedback was given to students how to improve in their academics. The evaluation of the program can be a short-term evaluation, which can be done soon after the end of the program, or it can be a long-term in which qualitative and quantitative evaluations can be done. There can be surveys done, pre and post evaluation, focus group evaluation, semi-structured interviews, statistical tests are done, pre and post telephonic interviews are conducted, some web-based survey tools are used. So these are the few methods which have been utilized by some universities, and the literature is available on that if the need requires. So what are the challenges in the mentoring system? The issue, these challenges were identified practically in one of our discussion. There was a discussion on the mentoring, and the issues were discussed over there. And during the mentoring committee meeting, and then we came out with the options to solve those problems. The issues is, for example, there is not enough staff members. In some of the faculties, there are not enough staff. So there are too many mentees for a mentor, which is not possible for that mentor to handle. They're too busy teaching duties, or they are too busy with the research and the postgraduate students, or the mentors are located at a different place in distant campuses. So it is very difficult for the concern will be that there will be the reduced effectiveness of the mentoring process, the time constraint for both mentors and mentees, and extra expenses for traveling by the mentors who will actually handle those extra expenses. The options will be the distance mentoring can be done, which can be done online or non-face-to-face, or there can be a flexibility in choosing the mentoring days and or time. So already, although there is a fixed slot, but the group can readjust those timings by mutual understanding with the mentees, so that the mentor does not have to travel extra for the mentoring session, or their activities are not affected. There was the issue of ghost mentors, when the staff has left the faculty with no information, and the student mentoring committee has no information that there are some mentees who are mentorless. The staff is engaged in further studies and they are not available, or staff are not serious in mentoring the students. The concern will be the lost records, because the mentor-mentee record book was with the staff. So if the staff leaves, the record of that or his or her mentees will be lost. The students will be without mentors, and there will be no channel of information about what is happening to those mentees. The options will be that mentor-mentee coordinator should be informed by the admin if the staff is leaving beforehand, so that alternative arrangement can be made. The mentors submit the record books back to MEU after each session, and they can collect those books after before their session. The mentoring records are kept at a specified place in the faculty. There can be a specified area for the mentoring activities, example student center, or there should be a mentoring center where all the records and the mentors, they can have their discussion, and they have a specified areas for to conduct all those activities, and where the record books are kept. The art of mentoring issue, the issue was they are not comfortable in mentoring, they are not motivated enough, or they think they are not skillful enough in this role. There is a fear of going wrong, and they're scared of writing the reports. The report writing part occurs when there is some issue with the mentee, and the academic office asks the mentor to give their report on the mentee's progress so far, so they have to write a report. And sometimes the mentors are scared of writing those reports, because they think that it can be hampering their progress. The concern will be the mentoring process will become ineffective. There will be the break in the line of information about mentees' issues, and some mentees will be lost again, so nobody will be taking care of them. The options will be, can we make the mentoring optional? It was a big question mark over there, because if you make it optional, maybe most of the mentors will decide not to do the mentoring, or the mentoring process itself will be affected. Conduct staff training workshop and seminars regularly was one of the options. Discussion forums with eminent lecturers to share their experiences was done by one of the universities, which was very, very successful. And the meeting of the mentors to share their ideas, so that if one mentor is finding to tackle the problem effectively, there is some other mentor who can give the good ideas, so that they can sit and talk with each other to discuss those issues. So these type of forums help the mentors who are young and who are lacking in the art of mentoring. The limitations, issues, they don't know the do's and don'ts of what to discuss. The social activities, some people are scared of taking the mentors out of the campus, who will be responsible if, God forbid, something happens to the mentees. Ethical concerns, whether they can take out the group which comprises of both the boys and the girls and all those, and when there are unclear rules and regulation of how much they can do, and what is their limitations. The concern will be the legal coverage, the clear line of action, and the developing informal yet personal professional relationship with the mentees. Options will be the official letter of appointment should be given to each mentor, so that becomes one legal document. The roles and responsibilities of the mentors are specified. They should be told to the mentees and to the mentors. The terms of reference and rules for mentoring are also approved by the faculty or university as a legal document, and the mentee service is conducted on regular basis. The concern by the students about the mentoring systems, the students said that they have low motivation, they are most of the time sleepy, they are unable to do the time management, they have too much to cope, they have poor memory, and for some students, the extent of the lecturers favor, because some of the lecturers are foreigners in most of the universities in Malaysia, so the local students find it difficult to understand the extent of the lecture. The options will be that the student biodata, their entrance data, personal information, psychosocial background should be provided to the mentors. So the mentors are mentally prepared of what type of mentees they are getting. Clear understanding of the mentoring goals should be given to all. Detailed information of the various components of semester exam and progress test for feedback. The discussion should be provided to the mentors so that they can discuss those issues with their mentees and guide them properly. The learning styles and the personality tests of the mentees should be performed so that the mentors are more prepared in guiding the students for their studies. Another component of mentoring in the universities is the peer mentoring. We are not going to go into the details of it, just a touch and go sort of a thing over here. It is practically a relationship between the people who are at the same career stage or age, in which one person has more experience than the other one and can provide support as well as knowledge and skill. Peer mentoring may be one-to-one relationship, or it can be experienced in a group. There are types of peer mentoring. The senior university students can mentor the junior students of different faculties for professional and personal development, in which the subject matter does not matter. So any senior university student can mentor the medical student, for example. The senior medical students mentor the junior medical students, which are going to help them in their academic excellence as well. Academically excelling medical students mentor academically struggling class fellows, which is going to help the students to improve in their standards and probably in few cases has helped the students to complete their courses on time. The medical students mentor the school or the college pupil applying for higher education. Example, BMS, the basic medical science students or foundation students are mentored by the medical students who can, after completing their BMS or foundation, can join the medical school, which goes good for the university that you are getting some students from your own university students. The benefits of the peer mentoring will be to bridge the gap between senior physician and junior students. If for example, the house officer of the same university are going to help the fifth year students, teach an aspect of the curriculum such as the clinical and procedural skills to the students, provide tips for effective learning, help mentees to uncover the hidden curriculum which is commonly experienced by the senior students, so they can inform their hidden curriculum to their juniors. Exchange ideas on access of resources, what are the resources available and where they are located. They are more informed about it. Navigate the aspects which are not formally covered in the curriculum. Collaborative working environment ensures better communication and understanding difficult concepts. So the environment is such that the students are not under pressure, the mentees are not under pressure. They're listening to a very senior person, so they can ask any questions and they can clear their concepts. They improve reasoning and communication skills, enhance cultural and religious awareness among the students, and subsequently increase knowledge, skills, and confidence, enhance their results in future interactions. The one example of peer mentoring I'm giving over here is done in University of Science Malaysia, which is called as the Big SIP program, in which the peer group mentoring is to strengthen training in soft skills and professional development only. So the Big SIPs are selected depending upon their academic and extracurricular achievements. The program activities focus on developing positive attitudes, racial integration, and soft skills. These are the basic requirements of the students in Malaysia. The racial integration is a very important component. So the Big SIPs are going to deal with these issues. Two Big SIPs handles a group of the first year students and will carry out 6 modules with their groups. The modules include indoor games, a workshop on a selected topic, village tracking or a treasure hunt, telematch, a public speaking or a picnic, and a visit to a place or an outing. These 6 modules, the Big SIPs can use their own ideas and creativity to how to run these modules, and then they will provide a report of their activities to the coordinators. There is peer mentoring by peer learning as well. The learning with and from each other is a necessary and important aspect of education. We all know that. And by peer learning, the students gain is very helpful. And without it, the students gain poor education. The session presents an opportunity for participants to discuss subject content which is covered in the teaching learning activities and to improve information through shared discussion. Academically good mentors are selected by the faculty and academically struggling mentees are assigned to them, which are few in numbers, so not more than 5. The mentor and mentee plan their methods and schedules of working with each other. So whenever they are studying, when they are having discussion, they will call their mentees and they can join into those groups. The mentors provide report of their activities and any issues to the coordinators. The viability of the program is assessed based on the results of both the mentors and mentees. It is very important that doing the peer mentoring, the mentors should not be suffering in their academic components. So the results of both are assessed to see whether the mentors are not going down and whether the mentees are improving in the performance. And in my experience, it happened that the mentees, they performed better after going through a period of peer mentoring. Excuse me. With that, we come to an end of the peer mentoring part. Now is the student tracking system. Student tracking system we have discussed in partly in one of our presentation on assessment, I think. But on the popular demand that the people want to know more about the student tracking system, this component has been added over here. So we all know that the effective mentoring is a key element for student success in medical school and increases the likelihood of eventual student career satisfaction. And students think that academic mentoring will be effective in supporting their academic performance. So students are more concerned about their academic viability than their other needs. The continuous monitoring of the student progress in medical school in some places is done by small group or one-to-one mentoring through analyzing the results. It resulted, and it has been documented that it resulted in improved bedside skills, improved learning skills, and evolved the ability to monitor the own development of their progress. So this is not something new which is happening. It's only that it is tracked in such a fashion that it becomes a continuous process and it is more holistic approach. What are the aim of and objective of the student tracking system is? The aim is to help the student improve in their academic performance, leading to graduation on time. The objectives will be to provide feedback to individual students about their overall performance, which is macro, and the performance in assessment components of a specific discipline or the type of question, which is micro. To foresee any decline in performance of individual or group of students and to initiate remedial action proactively. To assist the exam board, make evidence-based decision about students with borderline results. To update the parents and guardians about the performance of their wards and to seek their intervention if required. To monitor the academic performance of the school by comparing the academic performance of the same batch over time and the different batches of the students for specific modules and postings. Now let's see how the exam board uses this information to make decision. This is the result of, say, a group of students, which I am showing over here. I've changed the names in the BMD and all that. You will see that the result comprises of the written part B, the OSPE part, the total result over there. If you look at this result, you will see, you will see that there is a student who has scored 45 and has scored D. The D student is the borderline student, whoever scores between 45 to 49. So when we see this type of students, the board will ask to show us the progress of the students in other modules. So that student is now shown over here, and you will see that the result of the student, the graph of the student in different modules which I've run so far. That result was for the CNS module in which the student has scored 45. The line above Over here is for the student, the class average, and the bars is for the student's marks. The student is not fantastic. You can see over here, the student has hardly ever reached the class average mark. Performance of the student has already been below the bar. So if the students already, although have scored a number of Bs, but is a struggling student. You will also see that in this bar there is the class average, which is 55, which is not a very good average. Mean that probably the test was a bit difficult, or the student understanding of the topic was not correct. So in the CNS also the average was 57, which is again a C average for the class. Usually the B average is the better to attain for the whole class than to have C's or borderline. So there was some problem with the examination. So the questions and all that will be tested, looked at again. Was there any error in the question? Was there any problem in the questions? And you will see that this student has performed not very well in the true false type of questions, not performed very well in the extended matching questions, so that in the total of the part A, the student has failed. The student has failed in one of the SEQs. The student has failed in two of the OSPI stations. So practically the knowledge component of the student is pretty poor over here. We're looking at the result of the part A and of the part B, and probably that has brought down the result drastically. Before the student was getting B's and C's, so now it has fallen down to the D. So the remedial action has to be taken for the students. Some extra guidance should be provided to the students. The students will be called by the mentor, and the mentor will discuss what were the issues the student had and why he find this module so very difficult, and some remedial action is taken accordingly. The feedback of the student is also taken into account about the posting or the modules, to see that whether the students were satisfied with the different teaching learning activities or not. So if you can look at the bars over there, these are for the seminars and the problem solving sessions and the workbook and others. So this feedback information is also very important in tracking the students' performance, and the students' comments about different sessions is also very important. Although only very few students give the comments, but the comment by only a few students is very helpful in finding out the deficiencies in the modules of posting. In this bar, in this graph, you will look at that the first impression is that the student is poor performing, because the student has never reached the class average. All the time their bar was below the class average. The student has passed the year 1 examination, but was borderline, was 53. That type of students usually is for his future sake is advised to change the course, because it's a very early stage. The student has been struggling and getting D's in most of the modules, in wherever he has scored less than 40, so 46, 47, 45, less than 50. So there are a lot of modules in which the student was struggling, scoring the D's and the E's. So this student will be advised to change the course earlier on, so that he is not or she is not wasting a lot of time. In this you will see again that the problem is with some of the modules. The student's performance is also average, but he has passed the PCP examination, which is the year 2, the same marks like the previous students, but because he has done the year 2, so you cannot ask that student to leave the course at this stage. But for the year 3, the mentoring of that students will be taken care of more closely, so that the students, if the student is struggling in something, the student can be helped appropriately at a proper time. This is the bar. These are the bars of the clinical years of a student for year 3, year 4, and year 5. The green bars for year 3, the blue for all the year 4 postings, and the red one are for all the year 5 postings. So these bars tell that this student has been performing pretty well. most of the time the student has performed above the average students. So these are the students we expect are going to give very good results in the CPE. Some buck up to this type of students will help them to get distinction in some of the subjects. The mentors are provided with the results of their mentees for appropriate action as well. For example, from that same list which I've shown you earlier on, these are the 7 mentees for one of the mentors. So the number of student number 1, 7, 14, 20, 28, 36, 40. These are the theirs. If you look at the result of, for example, this student who scored 62, the result of all these students are given to the mentors. So this is the result of the student as a sample I'm showing you is of this student who has scored 62. So the mentor will get not only these bars which will show the overall macro performance of the student, but also the micro performance of the student. So you will see that generally the student has been performing very well. Although the marks in this module is lower than the previous marks the student was getting, but you will see that the performance overall the student has been doing well with the both the knowledge part and the practical part, the OSPE part of the assessment. So just need some more encouragement to excel. For the parents and guardians, this is one example I am bringing it over here. There were 2 girls, 2 sisters in one of my previous experience in a university. The performance of both the girls, both the siblings was not very good, but they were brought up by a single parent, and they were bluffing with the parent and not telling their exact results to them. So when they ultimately failed, a lot of letters were issued to them about the performance of the wards, but those letters disappeared. The mother claims that she never received any letter and that sort of the things. And when she was called upon, she couldn't come to meet to the dean, because sometimes the dean called those type of parents to them. She couldn't come because of her own job commitments and all those things. So the student failed in end of year 1 examination, both of them. Both of them didn't perform even borderline, so the result was even below the borderline. So the mother was very angry, and she came to the office, and she said that the girls have been telling that they have been performing okay, and that this time the assessment was very, very difficult. So if you show them the assessment, the students' response for the assessment about the question was pretty good. So this tracking was shown to the mother that no, I mean your girls might be having problem with the questions, but overall the students were pretty happy with the type of questions and the conduct of the examination. So practically this type of information helps us, gives us the legal coverage to deal with these situations, and also help if the mother would have come earlier on, she could have been more helpful to her girls. To grade the to track the performance of the student over the years that need remedial steps, so that we can understand that how the students are performing over the years. So you will see that these are this tracking is done according to the grades of the students in different modules. So you will see that the students, for example, in GIS, there are 30 students out of 53. This is according to the number of the students. There are 30 students who have scored Bs. So there's a high number of students who is scoring B, this one. There is a high number of students who is scoring C in the CNS system. There are a high number of students who are scoring B again in the musculoskeletal system. So we know that how the students are performing in different postings or the modules. Sorry. Over here, if you see that I've highlighted this area over here where there are 9 and the 10 students who have failed or have scored D. That 9 and 10 means 19 students. Out of 53 students, 10 students have failed. 19 students have failed in the CNS module. So we have to take care of the the situation over here, and we'll see that how the students perform in the next batch perform in the same module. To compare the results of different batches to gauge the faculty development. Now again, the x-axis shows the grades of the students, while the y-axis is the percentage of students who have passed the scores in percentage, and the groups from B1 to B6. There were 6 groups, batch 1 to batch 6, which were compared with each other. So you will see that, for example, the B6 batch has performed well in scoring 51% of the students scored A's, B's, 20% of the students scored A's, B plus, sorry, and 8% of the students scored A. So if you look at the B1, in which 27% of the students failed, to the result of the batch 6, you will see there is a marked improvement in the results of the students from batch 1 to batch 6 in acquiring the grade. So this is one way of tracking whether the staff is prepared enough. Their lecture notes, their other teaching learning activities are up to the mark, or the assessment questions are done well, they are well vetted. All these informations are, all this is helped by this activity. That's all. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any comments?
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful lecture, and I believe lectures like these can improve mentorship programs. We've been involved throughout the academic teaching in such mentorship programs, but the way you've presented the positives and negatives of implementing this particular program is amazing. Thank you so much.
Can I join in, Prof. Ruxana? Hello, Prof. Ruxana? I have a question.
Thank you very much, Prof.
I have a question for you, Prof. Ruxana.
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof. I'm listening.
Yes. Okay. Firstly, I want to congratulate you. Since I work with you since UITM time, you are so meticulous in tracking down the students. In this context is the mentoring, mentor-mentee part, but in everything, I remember we did at UITM the discrimination and the difficulty index. So I want to congratulate you. You are always meticulous in that aspect. Congratulations. Okay, now my question is, I didn't know, I didn't understand. You said that we can, the ME committee can give examples. Please give me examples. You said that the ME committee can design the formal activities for the mentees by the committee members. So actually, I'm not the ME committee in this AMU, but I'm want to know about it. What do you mean by formal activities can be designed by the committee, ME committee? So I'm not very clear about that. Can you elaborate for me, please?
The mentoring deals with 2 issues. One is the academic, and second is the professional development. For the academics, you can follow the results and you can give them the guidance on that. But for the professional development, for example, teamwork, social responsibility, communication skills, there are some activities which have to be divided. For the teamwork, the game plays. Can you listen to me? Can you
Yes,
hear me,
there's a break. Is it my side or your side? There's a little break in the internet. Anyway, I'm hearing you. There's a little break, huh?
Okay. Internet over here.
Anyway, now I got it.
Okay. So there's for example, for the teamwork, some activities are
Yes.
planned by the not by the medical education, but by the student mentoring committee.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay.
Student mentoring committee, and students perform in that committee. For example, there is some game which they play, or they do some activity in which the teamwork is involved, and that is reported to the office, and
Teamwork.
they score some marks yeah, some grade points for that.
So that is an example that you give, and it is done by the mentoring committee, student mentoring committee, right? Can design, can help out, or can design.
Yes, they are designed. For example, the example which I gave you about the Big Step program, it is
Yeah.
all
Yes,
basis,
very
but
good.
Big Step is more the mentor. Each mentor can divide. You take the students for Gotang Royang.
Okay, so all these formal activities that you mentioned will come for the second part, not the academic part. These are the so-called professional development part, right?
First question, that how to choose the senior students for okay. The sorry, again there is a okay. Sorry, there was again the loss. I lost the contact. The senior student is a question on how to choose the senior students for mentoring the junior students. Usually, the students who have been excelling in their academics are selected for this purpose, and they come and they talk to those students on how they have learned, how they have studied, how they have coped with all the pressures, and this is sort of an informal talk which they give to the students uh, to guide them that how they have performed well, and what were their methods of teaching, of their methods of learning to excel in the academics. The other way is that you select and the students who are struggling, so you go by the result of those students. So you will see that students who have been always performing well in the few modules, you select those students, ask them for if they are willing to do this peer learning thing, and if they agree to that, and if they're committed to that, then you pair them with the mentees, which are maximum 5 in number, and whenever the students are going to discuss a topic, the students will tell them, the mentees will tell them which topic they are struggling in. So when they are going to discuss it, they are going to call those students, and they will have a common discussion on those topics, and then they will give the report of all those activities to the coordinator. Okay, but Hero, can I have your question, please?
Yes, please. Thank you very much for your informative webinar. I get answers to many of my questions. I have still a couple of questions. You talked about that if the mentoring and mentee process to be optional. In this case, some mentors will not be able or will not accept to be mentors. But if we select mentors, for example, we oblige them to attend as a mentor to guide students. In this case, they will be maybe not interested in, and may have negative consequences on the process. What's your opinion about that?
That is so very true. That is why I put 2 question marks, that whether it should be made optional or not. In Malaysia, most of the students, most of the universities are struggling with the number of mentees. So if the people they because the staff is less and the number of students is more, and if we give this option to the mentors, then it becomes very difficult for them for the other mentors, because other will also complain, and they will say that they also don't want to do the mentoring. But yeah, it can be the mentors, if they are doing their job well, if they are rewarded, probably it will become one of the incentives for the people to participate in it. For example, the mentor who is mentoring the students can be given some specific time to do the research projects, so that they have the isolated time to do the research also, so they are happy that they are doing research as well as they are giving some input in the mentoring. Or their teaching activities, if they are overworked, their teaching and activities can be looked into, and that can be redistributed. So some sort of adjustment can be made, but some sort of incentives has to be there. In Malaysia, I don't know, you're from Malaysia?
I'm from Hawlier Medical University. I'm from Kurdistan of Iraq.
Oh, okay. Welcome to
Thank you.
In Malaysia, the mentoring is a part of KPI. KPI is the key performance index of the staff, and if they are actively involved in the mentoring, it will give them some scores which help them in their profession and their retention as a staff member. So it is like a carrot and stick sort of a thing, so that they're giving incentives over there to participate.
I see. You mean that there should be a reward system, something like that, in order to encourage?
For me, if the university can issue a letter or give them a certificate, that will make the mentors more happier. Instead of
Assalamu alaikum,
in-
Dr. Rukhsana. Can I ask a question? Kindly.
yeah, just last sentence. In some universities, the monetary benefits are given to the mentors for mentoring as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Nighat Nadeem
Yes.
from Lahore.
Yes.
Dr. Rukhsana, how would you differentiate mentoring? The student counseling services are there, career counseling services are there. So how do we say on one side that is being done and another side mentoring program is also being done for students? So what would differentiate them?
The counseling services are more serious one, Dr. Nighat. If, for example, the student has a psychiatric or psychological problem, a mentor cannot deal with that one. So for that one, they have to send to the counselor. The student is having a financial problem, and that is affecting their performance. So they have to be sent to the expert in the finance department, so that they can sort out those problems. The student need to know the venues. The mentors cannot solve all the problems, but the mentor can guide the students toward the venues which are going to help the students in sorting out their issues. I've seen a lot of students struggling because they cannot pay their fee on time, and for that their result was blocked, or they were not allowed to sit for the examination. In that situation, there has to be some sort of negotiation which can take place with the treasury department in the university, and for that, as a mentor, I will talk to the student affairs in the school, and the school will talk to the people over there, and some amicable solution can be worked out over there, that how this matter can be resolved. This type of
sorry to cut in. So keeping in mind, if we say, do we have to keep the mentoring program for each and every student of each and every year, or do we select our students for mentoring?
For me, for the initial year, for the first year, everybody should be mentored, because this is a very making and breaking year for the students, and some students, very good students, just simply cannot perform well because of the stress of the university environment. So for those students, the mentoring is very, very compulsory, especially in private institutes when the students are there which are not really very excellent already. So you need to keep them afloat by providing them with some sort of a mentoring services. Then in the year 3, when the student enters into the clinical years, again they will need some sort of a support, because the life in the clinical year becomes very tough, and they have to do the night duties, and they have to deal with the patients directly, and they will see the people dying over there and the people suffering over there. So some sort of support is required over there. So it depends upon the resources which you have. Generally, if you are resourceful, the mentoring for the 5 years for all students is the best idea. But then if the situation is not that one, then according to your own situation, you can plan it.
That's right, but considering the fact that obviously you know that in our government setups we have over 350 students, even in our privates we have almost 150 first year, but sometimes with years they can extend to 170, 80. I think that you are very right about the first year, taking them up on that note. But regarding the mentors, because sometimes the problem that occurs is that in our college there was a personal tutorial system which was run for a few years. So you see, the bracket of mentors would be from AP to professors if you have to integrate all the students of all the years. Do you think the younger mentee are reliable enough, or should they be taken up? Because you see, you don't have that many professors or senior faculty to deal. So then
I got your question. In Malaysia, any academic staff is capable of mentoring. They just have to undergo a training. So in fact, the students like the younger one better than the senior one, because they are a bit scared of the senior one talking to them. And the younger one knows, the younger one knows the problems as well, because they have just graduated, so know what sort of problems they have faced and how they have overcome them. See, peer mentoring is very, very important. So it is a sort of in between the peer mentoring and the real mentoring of the student by senior staff. If senior staffs are not available, it's absolutely right to have the younger one. They just have to be trained, and they should know all the rules and regulations of mentoring. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Assalamu alaikum, Rukhsana, can I say something?
Yes, walaikum assalam, Dr. Fatma, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be just short and precise. Rukhsana, we have a very well-developed mentoring system in our university, Rifa International University, Islamabad, and we are facing all these challenges. My question from you is just that, do you have any tools to assess the behavioral, the behavioral assessment of students? Do you conduct it, or do you have any questionnaire for that? Because mentoring is basically about changing the behavior of the students. We have the academic system and we assess the progress of the students academically, but this component of assessing the behavior, that is somehow very difficult. And we are not comfortable with the questions we ask them, like monitoring their prayers and their concept of akhira. So I have some confusions regarding it. If you can just please clear it.
We just follow the students and we gauge them about their behaviors. The students' punctuality in attending those talks, those discussions, their contribution in the mentoring, whether they are proactively involved in that, their results and their performance, all that we look into that, but we don't do any remedial action for that. We just pass this information to the academic office.
Remember, but do you think? Sorry, but this one individual, one-to-one attention to each individual and observing them, don't you think it's a little hectic for the mentors?
It is very hectic. It is very hectic. So usually one-to-one is given to only those students who are having problems.
Okay, because we have a large group, around 12 to 15 to 20 students. Again, same issues, and we even engage our demonstrators as well in all the trainings, mentoring trainings.
That's fine. That is fine. That is
Thanks.
Fine.
Thank you.
Can you have a question, Dr. Rukhsana?
Professor. Yes, Professor.
Yes. Now, there must be some mechanism how to mentor or train the mentors. Because sometimes even the mentor may give a wrong advice and rather he may spoil the whole show.
That is so true, Prof. Yes, we conduct the workshops for the mentor training, in which the people who have been mentoring for many years, the skilled ones, the real skilled ones, they come and they share their experiences and how they have managed all that and what are the criteria and what to do and what not to do. All this training is done. And this training is repeatedly done. Even if you have undergone it, then you can undergo the higher level of the training after 6 months or after a year, so that you know how you can progress and how you can excel. It's like teaching, Prof. While you are teaching in the initial stages, you want to teach everything to the students, but as you become more experienced, you tell the students only what is pertinent and what is important. So the mentors, they learn over time, and they themselves, they become experienced enough so that they can give a good guide. But yes, there is always a chance of giving the wrong information to the students and jeopardizing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. I think we are coming towards the end of the session. I know there are some questions which could not be answered because of the time limitation, but we are coming towards the end of this session. I know there are some questions still there which could not be answered due to the lack of time. So, but you can always write those questions in WhatsApp group, and we will try to answer that. As usual, I have to share something. For the yeah. Two participants raised their hand. Yes, please. Somebody raised their hand.
Yes, sir. So I am Dr. Sumair from Gujranwala.
Okay. This is the announcement for.
Can we have a combined session, mentor-mentee session from first year till final year? Combined session.
Yeah. So this is our next webinar, and that would be held on 21st of March, and the topic is programmatic assessment. Time would be same, and hope you would be able to join that. We will be talking about the concept of programmatic assessment and how it can be implemented. And I find this topic very interesting and fascinating, and it actually changes the whole thinking about the assessment, what we have been doing so far. So I'm sure you'll find it interesting as well.
Prof?
Yes, Professor.
I'm just curious, what's the difference between program assessment and programmatic assessment? It's an adjective.
Yeah, Prof, you will have to wait for 1 month to get that answer.
But you will give us the PowerPoints, right?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay, I'll wait till then.
Right. Okay, and our usual appeal to all the participants, please donate $1 or equivalent amount in your local currency to any deserving individual in your neighborhood or any public welfare organization in your community as a part of charity drive, because that is one contribution the MedEd webinar series want to make to the community. Thank you very much for your attention, for your support, continuous support, and hope we will keep on growing in this part of academic and charity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. God bless you all.